The billionaire walked slowly through the quiet streets, his expensive shoes making almost no sound on the wet pavement. Rain had fallen overnight, leaving small puddles that reflected the morning light. Even with all the noise and rush of the city behind him, there was a stillness inside him that made every step feel heavy. He was used to control, to power, to having everything he wanted. But this morning, like every morning since the accident, he felt powerless. His mind was filled with memories of his daughter, the laughter that had once echoed through the halls of his mansion, the tiny hands that had held his so tightly, and the last words she had whispered before she was gone. He carried a small bouquet of her favorite flowers. They were fresh, carefully chosen, and wrapped in soft paper. He had learned to pick them just right so that they would not wilt too quickly, so they would somehow reflect the love he still felt. In his private world, these flowers were more than petals and stems. They were a small connection to her, a way to show her that he still remembered, still cared, still loved her even though she was no longer there. The cemetery was quiet, almost eerily so. He had visited this place countless times, but each visit felt new and different. Sometimes he came at dawn, sometimes in the middle of the day, and sometimes when the sky was gray and heavy with clouds. Today, the air smelled of wet earth and the faint scent of flowers from other graves. He could hear the occasional bird singing, a soft reminder that life went on even when he felt stuck in his grief. As he walked, he noticed the familiar path lined with trees. Their branches reached out like gentle arms, offering a small comfort in the cold, empty world he felt around him. He remembered walking here with his daughter, holding her tiny hand as they looked at the stones, reading names together, and asking questions that only a child could ask. Her curiosity had been endless, her joy uncontainable. He remembered how she laughed when she saw a squirrel running across the grass, how she had hugged him tightly when a stranger smiled at her, and how her eyes had always seemed to hold a deeper understanding than her years should have allowed. He stopped in front of her tomb, a place he had visited so many times that he knew every detail. The stone was smooth, polished, and engraved with her name. There were little decorations around it, sometimes left by visitors or friends, and sometimes by him. Today, there were no toys, no cards, only the flowers he had brought. He placed them carefully on the ground, arranging them so that they looked just right, as if she could still see them and smile. He knelt down, letting the rain-soaked earth brush against his knees, and ran his fingers over the engraved letters. The stone was cold, but it felt solid, real, and permanent, a stark reminder of the truth he could not escape. He whispered her name, softly at first, as if speaking too loudly might break the fragile silence around him. Tears filled his eyes, not just because of loss, but because of the love that remained, raw and unending. Each tear seemed to carry a memory, a moment, a piece of the past that he desperately wanted to hold on to. He stayed like this for a long time, listening to the quiet, breathing in the cool air, feeling the emptiness settle around him like a heavy blanket. Memories came unbidden, washing over him in waves. He remembered the day she had first learned to ride a bicycle, her small hands trembling as she balanced, and the look of pride on her face when she finally succeeded. He remembered the evenings spent reading stories, her head resting against his shoulder, and the laughter that had filled the room when she tried to make up her own endings. Each memory was bittersweet, beautiful and painful at the same time, reminding him that what he had lost was irreplaceable. He stood up, taking a deep breath, and tried to shake off the heaviness that weighed on his chest. Even in his wealth, even in his success, he felt the emptiness keenly. Money could not bring her back, power could not fill the void, and fame could not erase the pain. He had learned this truth painfully, over and over again, and yet he returned here week after week, because it was the only place where he could feel close to her, even for a moment. As he turned to leave, he noticed something unusual. There was a figure near the tomb, someone he had not expected. A janitor, someone who worked quietly and often went unnoticed, was kneeling near the stone. But it was not just the janitor that caught his attention. The janitor was holding a small child, and both of them were crying softly. The scene stopped him in his tracks. He had seen grief before, but this was different. The intensity, the rawness of it, the way the janitor clutched the child as if trying to protect them from the world, made him pause. He watched quietly, unsure whether to approach, unsure whether to interrupt, but unable to look away. The janitor's tears were silent, but deep, as if every sorrow in the world had found its way into that small body. The child, though small and fragile, seemed to understand the weight of the moment, holding onto the janitor's hand tightly, eyes wide, perhaps sensing the sadness that surrounded them. The billionaire felt a strange mix of emotions, curiosity, confusion, and something he had not felt in a long time, a connection to another human being in shared sorrow. He took a careful step forward, unsure of what to say or do. Words seemed inadequate, almost meaningless in the presence of such raw emotion. He had always been a man of action, a man of decisions, but here, in this quiet cemetery, he felt powerless. The janitor did not notice him yet, and the child's small hand twitched slightly in response to the gentle rain that fell on their faces. The billionaire realized that grief did not discriminate, did not care about wealth or status, and did not need permission to appear. It was universal, and here it was undeniable and human. For a long moment he simply stood there, watching them, letting the silence speak. He remembered how his daughter used to say that tears were not weakness, but a way to show love. He had never understood fully until now, watching this man and child express their sorrow so openly, so honestly. There was a purity in it, something untouched by the complexities of the world, something that reminded him of what he had lost and what still mattered. The rain grew heavier, drumming softly on the leaves and the stone. The billionaire took another step, closer this time, feeling an urge to reach out, to offer comfort in a way he did not know how. He could see the janitor's shoulders shaking, the child's small face buried against the larger body, and something inside him stirred. A memory of holding his own daughter, of comforting her when she had fallen or cried, came rushing back, bringing with it both pain and a strange warmth. He wanted to say something, to connect, but the right words eluded him. He knelt down at a respectful distance, careful not to intrude, and allowed himself to simply be present. Sometimes, being present was enough. Sometimes, the act of witnessing someone else's grief could bring a strange sense of shared humanity. He stayed there, letting the rain wash over him, feeling the cold dampness on his face, and thinking about how life could be both cruel and beautiful in the same moment. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours. The janitor finally lifted his head, wiping his eyes roughly with the back of his hand. The child's gaze met the billionaire's for the first time, wide and curious, and for a fleeting moment, there was a silent acknowledgement, a recognition of another human being who understood sorrow. No words were spoken, but something passed between them, a bridge built not by speech, but by shared experience. The billionaire stood slowly, feeling a strange mix of relief and heaviness. He had come to this place expecting only his own grief, but he had found something else as well, a reminder that life continued in unexpected ways, that love could be found even in the most painful places, and that connection was possible even between strangers. He took one last look at the janitor and the child, letting the image imprint in his mind, a memory that would stay with him long after he left the cemetery. As he walked away, the rain continued to fall, gentle and cleansing. He felt a strange sense of anticipation, a feeling that the day might bring more than he expected. The memory of the janitor and the child lingered, a reminder that grief was not a solitary journey, and that even in the darkest moments, human connection could shine through, quietly, persistently, and beautifully. The billionaire's steps slowed as he moved closer to the janitor and the small child. He wanted to understand what was happening without disturbing the fragile moment that had unfolded. The janitor's head was bowed, and the child clung tightly to his side, small arms wrapped around his waist. The sight was unexpected, but somehow it felt right, like grief had drawn them both here for a reason he could not yet understand. He watched them quietly, noticing the tears running down the janitor's face. They were not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, persistent, a sadness that seemed to reach deep into the soul. The child's face was wet too, eyes red and blinking as they tried to make sense of the emotions around them. There was a vulnerability in the child, a mix of fear and trust, that reminded the billionaire painfully of his own daughter. He remembered the little hand that had once held his, the small voice that had whispered secrets, the laughter that had filled his home. Seeing this child stirred something deep within him, a longing to protect, to comfort, to somehow make the world safe again, if only for a moment. The janitor shifted slightly, brushing his sleeve across his eyes as if trying to hide the tears. The billionaire could see the weight of sorrow pressing down on him, the same kind of heaviness that had never left him since his daughter passed away. There was a connection forming silently, a shared understanding of loss that did not need words. The billionaire realized that grief was a language of its own, one that transcended wealth, status, or background. It was raw, human, and unrelenting, but it was also a bridge between hearts. He took another cautious step forward, making sure not to startle them. The janitor seemed lost in his own world, unaware of anyone else around. The child, too, seemed absorbed in the moment, holding on tightly as if the janitor's presence was the only thing keeping them grounded. The billionaire felt an urge to speak, to ask who they were, why they were here, and how they had come to this place. But words felt fragile, easily breaking the fragile bubble of emotion that surrounded them. Instead, he stayed silent, observing, letting the moment stretch, letting the grief breathe. As he watched, small details began to emerge. The janitor's uniform was worn but clean, showing signs of a life of hard work, early mornings, and long nights. There was something dignified in the way he held the child, a protective strength that came from experience and care. The child's small head rested against the janitor's chest, hair damp from the rain, eyes closed in quiet sorrow. It was clear that they were not strangers to loss, that their presence here was more than coincidence. There was a story here, one the billionaire did not yet know, and he felt a deep curiosity mixed with a growing respect for the quiet courage he witnessed. The billionaire's mind wandered back to his daughter. He remembered how she had always noticed little things, how she would watch people and animals with gentle attention. She had a gift for seeing the sadness or joy in others, and she had loved to help in ways big and small. Perhaps that was why the child and the janitor had drawn him in so completely. There was a reflection of the love and compassion his daughter had shown, a continuation of the light she had brought into the world. He realized that even though she was gone, her influence still existed, in unexpected places, in unexpected people. He took a slow breath, feeling the cool air fill his lungs. The rain continued to fall softly, drumming against the leaves and the stone, adding a rhythm to the quiet scene. He noticed the way the janitor's hands moved, gently stroking the child's hair, holding them close as if afraid to let go. There was a tenderness there, an unspoken promise to protect, to care, to offer comfort in the face of sorrow. The billionaire felt a pang of emotion, a mix of admiration, longing, and recognition. Here was someone who understood grief as intimately as he did, someone who had learned to carry it with quiet strength. The child stirred slightly, looking up with eyes wide and searching. The gaze met the billionaire's for a brief second, full of curiosity and cautious trust. He felt a connection spark in that instant, a recognition of shared humanity. He knelt down at a respectful distance, wanting to appear less intimidating, to offer a presence that was safe and calm. The janitor glanced up briefly, his eyes meeting the billionaire's, and there was a silent acknowledgement, a question asked without words, a bridge formed between strangers through the shared weight of grief. The billionaire realized that he wanted to know their story. He wanted to understand who this child was, why the janitor was here, and what brought them to this sacred place. But he also knew that it had to be done gently, with care, without forcing words into a delicate moment. He remained still, letting the rain fall, letting the quiet stretch between them, giving space for the emotions to settle. Minutes passed, and the janitor finally spoke, his voice low, steady, and tinged with sadness. He explained that the child had nowhere else to go, that they had been through hardship and loss, and that he had brought them here to honor the memory of someone who had shown kindness and love. The billionaire listened intently, every word striking a chord deep within him. He could feel the layers of grief, hope, and care intertwined in the janitor's story, and he understood, in a way he hadn't before, that human connection could emerge even from pain. The child clung more tightly to the janitor, sensing the weight of the moment, but also the subtle shift in the presence of the billionaire. There was no fear, only curiosity, as if the child could sense the intention behind his silence. The billionaire's heart swelled with a mix of emotions: compassion, recognition, and a longing to offer comfort in a way that words could not fully express. He reached slowly, extending a hand, not to intrude, but to show acknowledgement, respect, and care. The janitor hesitated, then nodded, understanding the gesture, and the child looked on with wide, trusting eyes. In that moment, a silent agreement passed between them, a recognition that grief could be shared, that human connection could be offered without demand, that sorrow could bring people together instead of keeping them apart. The billionaire felt a warmth in his chest, a small but powerful sense of hope that even in the midst of loss, there could be moments of understanding, care, and unexpected beauty. Time seemed to slow, and the rain fell in a gentle rhythm, a companion to the quiet unfolding of emotions. The janitor explained more, sharing memories and stories, each one revealing layers of connection, compassion, and resilience. The child listened, sometimes interrupting with small questions, innocent and curious, their presence a gentle reminder that life continued even in the shadow of grief. The billionaire felt a shift within himself, a softening of the walls he had built around his heart, a recognition that he was not alone in his sorrow. The scene was delicate, fragile, yet filled with a profound sense of humanity. He could see how grief, while painful, had the power to create bonds, to form connections that transcended circumstance. Here, in the quiet cemetery, among the rain and the cold stone, a silent understanding was forming. The billionaire realized that his presence mattered not as a wealthy man, but as a fellow human being, someone who could witness, share, and perhaps help carry the weight of sorrow for a brief moment. He stayed there for a long while, kneeling, observing, listening, letting the moment exist without trying to change it. The janitor's hand rested gently on the child's back, the child's small fingers curling around the janitor's sleeve, and the billionaire felt a deep sense of reverence for the quiet courage they displayed. He understood that sometimes, simply being present, simply witnessing, could be a gift greater than words, greater than actions, greater than anything money or power could provide. As the rain began to lighten, a soft mist in the air, the billionaire finally spoke, his voice low and gentle, careful not to startle or intrude. He asked about their names, their story, and how they had come to be here. The janitor shared more, explaining the hardships they had faced, the ways the child had struggled, and the moments of hope that had kept them going. The billionaire listened intently, absorbing every detail, feeling the threads of connection weave a tapestry of shared experience, sorrow, and resilience. The child looked up at him again, eyes filled with cautious curiosity, and the billionaire smiled softly, a small gesture of reassurance, kindness, and understanding. In that moment, he realized that the journey of grief could be shared, that sorrow could unite rather than isolate, and that human connection could emerge even in the most unexpected places. The janitor and child, unaware of the full impact of their presence, had opened a door in his heart that he had not known existed. As he rose to leave, the billionaire felt a mixture of emotions: sadness, hope, curiosity, and a newfound sense of responsibility. He had come to the tomb expecting only to mourn alone, to feel the weight of his loss, and yet he had found something else entirely. A connection, fragile yet profound, had been formed. He knew that this encounter would stay with him, that it would shape the way he thought about grief, compassion, and the human capacity for care. The rain had stopped completely now, leaving the air fresh, cool, and clean. The tomb stood silently, a reminder of loss, memory, and love. The janitor and child remained, quietly tending to their own emotions, and the billionaire took one last look before walking away, feeling a strange sense of anticipation. Life, he realized, could bring unexpected gifts even in the darkest moments. And sometimes, the simplest act of sharing grief could lead to the most profound forms of connection and healing. The billionaire stood quietly, watching as the janitor carefully held the child, stroking their hair gently. There was something in the way he moved, a quiet, steady care that spoke of experience and deep emotion. For a moment, the billionaire felt the pull of curiosity stronger than ever. He wanted to understand who these people were, why they had come here, and how their grief connected with his own. The cemetery was silent, as if holding its breath, waiting for stories to be shared and hearts to open. The janitor finally spoke, his voice low and measured, but carrying weight. He explained that the child had no family left, that life had been hard, and that they had been struggling to find stability. The billionaire listened intently, every word striking deep within him. He could feel the pain, the loneliness, the fear, and the hope intertwined in the janitor's words. There was a history here, a story of hardship, courage, and quiet resilience, and the billionaire realized that he had stumbled into a moment that would change his understanding of grief forever. The janitor shared that he had known the billionaire's daughter in a way that few people had. She had always been kind, always looking out for others, and she had once shown unexpected compassion to the child in his care. It had been a small gesture at the time, a moment of simple human kindness that had made a lasting impact. The child had been struggling, lost, and frightened, but the daughter had offered attention, understanding, and comfort. It was a memory that the janitor had cherished and now, years later, brought the child to honor her memory. The billionaire's chest tightened as he listened. He remembered his daughter's gentle nature, the way she had always noticed those around her, the way she had found joy in small acts of kindness. Hearing how she had touched this child's life in a meaningful way, even after she was gone, filled him with a mixture of sorrow and awe. He realized that her influence was enduring, reaching far beyond the walls of their home, touching lives he would never have imagined. The child, sensing the seriousness of the moment, looked up at the billionaire with wide, questioning eyes. The billionaire knelt slowly, not wanting to intimidate them, and smiled softly. He could see the innocence and curiosity in those eyes, the small flicker of hope that survived even in the midst of hardship. It reminded him so strongly of his own daughter, of her laughter, her questions, her warmth, and her light. The memory hit him suddenly, and he felt both the weight of loss and the spark of connection. The janitor continued, sharing small stories of the child's past, moments of fear and courage, loneliness and fleeting happiness. The billionaire listened with rapt attention, feeling his heart open slowly to the possibility of involvement, of care, of responsibility. He realized that the child needed someone, that the janitor had carried this burden silently for too long, and that perhaps he could offer something that went beyond his own grief. He felt a stirring inside him, a sense that this encounter was not by chance, that life had presented him with a choice, a chance to extend love and care in a meaningful way. The rain had stopped, leaving the air damp and fresh, carrying the scent of earth and flowers. The tomb stood as a quiet sentinel, a symbol of loss and memory, and the billionaire felt its presence in a way he had not before. He understood now that grief was not something to be faced alone, that it could be shared and that connection could grow even in unexpected ways. He looked at the janitor and the child, seeing in them the continuation of his daughter's legacy of kindness and compassion. Time seemed to stretch, each moment thick with meaning. The billionaire felt a wave of emotions, sorrow for the past, empathy for the present, and cautious hope for the future. He realized that life could bring opportunities for healing even in the shadow of tragedy, that moments of connection could emerge from grief, and that love could extend beyond the boundaries of family and wealth. The janitor, unaware of the full impact of his presence, had opened a door in the billionaire's heart, and the child, in their innocence and trust, had helped bridge a gap he had not known existed. The billionaire spoke finally, his voice gentle and careful. He asked the janitor to tell him more, to explain how the child had come to him, how they had survived, and how they had managed to carry hope through hardship. The janitor shared stories of small victories, moments of courage, and acts of kindness that had kept the child alive and believing in the goodness of the world. Each story painted a picture of resilience and determination, and the billionaire felt admiration and a growing sense of purpose. The child, now more comfortable, looked up at the billionaire with a shy smile. It was a small gesture, but it carried profound meaning. The billionaire felt a warmth spread through his chest, a mixture of joy and sorrow, recognition and hope. He realized that even though he had lost his own daughter, her influence and the goodness she had instilled in the world could continue through others. He felt the importance of stepping forward, of offering support, and of being present in a way that mattered. The janitor's eyes softened as he looked at the billionaire, recognizing the shift in his demeanor. There was no judgment, only understanding and shared sorrow. He explained that the child had always spoken of someone kind who had touched their life, and that they had remembered her words, her gestures, her encouragement. The billionaire felt a lump in his throat, realizing that the kindness his daughter had shown had a ripple effect, touching lives in ways he could not have imagined. The child reached up, tentatively touching the billionaire's hand, and he responded with a gentle squeeze. The connection was quiet, subtle, but powerful. It was a moment of shared humanity, of recognition, of acknowledgement. In that small gesture, he felt a sense of responsibility, a desire to nurture, protect, and offer what he could. He understood that grief could unite, that sorrow could create bonds, and that human connection was one of the most important legacies one could leave behind. As they sat together near the tomb, the billionaire asked more questions, listening carefully to the answers, absorbing every detail. He learned about the child's fears, their dreams, their small triumphs, and their moments of despair. Each story was a reminder of resilience, of the human spirit's capacity to endure, and of the importance of compassion. The billionaire felt a growing bond, an unspoken commitment to be a part of their journey, to offer support and care where it was needed. The janitor shared memories of the daughter, stories of her kindness and joy, and the billionaire listened, absorbing every word. He felt pride mixed with grief, admiration mixed with longing, and a sense of continuity that gave him comfort. He realized that even though she was gone, her influence lived on, inspiring compassion, empathy, and care in ways he had not anticipated. The child and the janitor were a living reminder of the goodness she had brought into the world. Time passed quietly, the world outside the cemetery continuing its rush and noise, but within the small circle of the three, there was stillness, presence, and connection. The billionaire felt a shift within himself, a softening of grief, a recognition that he could participate in life again, that he could offer love, and that he could honor his daughter through action and care. He understood that healing did not mean forgetting, but rather embracing life fully, with compassion and awareness. As the day grew brighter, the shadows of the morning receded, leaving a sense of hope and possibility. The billionaire rose slowly, extending a hand to the janitor and the child, an offer of partnership, support, and care. The janitor accepted, recognizing the sincerity and compassion in the gesture. The child's small hand found his, and in that simple act, a bond was solidified, a new chapter quietly beginning. The billionaire looked back at the tomb one last time before leaving, feeling a sense of gratitude, reverence, and connection. He had come expecting to face his grief alone, but he had found something far more powerful: human connection, shared sorrow, and the opportunity to extend love beyond himself. He understood that life was unpredictable, that loss could lead to unexpected bonds, and that compassion and care could create a legacy that transcended wealth and status. Walking away, the billionaire felt a mixture of sorrow and hope, the weight of loss still present, but softened by connection and understanding. The janitor and child remained near the tomb, a living reminder of love, resilience, and the enduring impact of kindness. The billionaire knew that this encounter would shape his days to come, guiding him toward healing, compassion, and the quiet joy of being present for others. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, a recognition that even in grief, there was room for hope, love, and meaningful human connection. The billionaire remained close, kneeling near the janitor and the child, feeling a quiet tension and connection in the air. The janitor had shared enough for him to understand a little of their past, but there was more to know. He wanted to ask, to connect, to offer help, but he hesitated, unsure how to do it without overstepping. He realized that grief was a delicate thing, and trust had to be earned. The child played softly with the edge of the janitor's uniform, their small fingers curling and uncurling. There was innocence in the gesture, a natural need for comfort, and the billionaire felt it like a tug at his heart. He remembered the tiny hand of his own daughter, the way it would reach for him, searching for security and love. Seeing this child brought memories rushing back, bitter and sweet all at once. He felt both the pain of loss and the gentle reminder of what love could be. Finally, the billionaire spoke, his voice soft and careful. He asked about the child's day, how they were feeling, and slowly the conversation began to open. The janitor answered honestly, cautiously, still protective of the child. They spoke of small victories, like the child learning to trust adults again, and small fears, like the nights when the world felt too big and scary. The billionaire listened, asking gentle questions, offering reassurance without imposing. His tone was calm, measured, full of empathy and understanding. The janitor began to relax slightly, sensing the sincerity in the billionaire's voice. He shared more about the child's life, about hardships, about the loneliness that had weighed heavily. The billionaire could feel the depth of their journey, the struggles that had shaped both the janitor and the child. There was respect in his heart, a growing understanding that their bond was more than circumstance. It was love and protection forged through adversity. The child, shy but curious, began to ask questions too. Innocent ones about the billionaire's life, about the weather, about why he came to the cemetery. He answered them honestly, carefully choosing words that were kind, simple, and true. There were smiles exchanged, small, cautious, but real. The child's laughter, though quiet, rang through the space, breaking the heaviness for just a moment. The billionaire felt warmth, a feeling that had been foreign for a long time. He realized that moments like this were gifts, and that presence, attention, and care mattered more than any wealth or material comfort. The janitor shared the moment that had inspired him to bring the child here. He spoke of the daughter, how she had shown kindness when it was least expected, how her words had given hope, and how she had inspired trust and courage. The billionaire listened closely, realizing that his daughter's influence had spread beyond his imagination. He felt pride, sadness, and a strange sense of fulfillment, knowing that her memory lived on in this small, fragile, but resilient child. The conversation grew more personal, more heartfelt. The billionaire began to share memories of his daughter, not the polished, perfect moments, but the little things, her favorite stories, the jokes she made, the silly dances she would do in the living room. The janitor listened intently, nodding and smiling at the glimpses of life and love that had filled the billionaire's home. The child listened too, eyes wide, captivated by the stories of kindness and joy. It was a moment where grief and memory intertwined, where loss became a bridge to understanding, empathy, and connection. As the sun began to rise higher in the sky, casting light through the trees, the billionaire felt a stirring in his heart. He realized that he wanted to be a part of their lives, that he wanted to offer support, safety, and love. He reached out his hand, not just as a gesture, but as a promise to be present, to care, to share what he could. The janitor looked at him, uncertainty in his eyes, but slowly, he extended his hand too, recognizing sincerity and trust. The child watched, then reached out, placing a small hand in the billionaire's palm. The connection was quiet, but powerful, a bond forged in understanding, grief, and hope. They sat together for a long while, speaking softly, sharing stories, and even laughing at small, simple things. The billionaire felt the weight of sorrow still present, but softened by the warmth of shared human connection. He understood that grief did not vanish, but that it could coexist with moments of joy, kindness, and love. He saw how the janitor's quiet courage had nurtured the child, and he felt compelled to support them, to offer stability and protection. The janitor explained more about the child's daily life, the struggles they faced, and the small victories that often went unnoticed. The billionaire listened, nodding, offering words of encouragement, and occasionally sharing advice or observations drawn from his own life. The child asked questions, listened carefully, and sometimes laughed, each moment a tiny bridge connecting them all. There was a rhythm to the interaction, a gentle dance of understanding and empathy, building trust and familiarity. The child spoke of dreams, simple ones like having a home where they felt safe, a garden to play in, and someone to share stories with. The billionaire felt a deep resolve, a desire to help realize those dreams. He realized that his wealth could offer comfort, stability, and opportunity, but more than that, he could offer time, attention, and presence. The things that mattered most in the life of a child who had experienced loss. The janitor, seeing the billionaire's sincerity, shared his own story more fully. He spoke of the challenges of caring for the child, the sacrifices made, the nights of worry, and the moments of quiet triumph. The billionaire listened, his heart opening wider, feeling a sense of respect and admiration for the janitor's dedication and love. He recognized the strength it took to continue in the face of adversity, and he felt a bond forming, grounded in mutual respect and shared understanding of grief and responsibility. They spoke about the daughter again, remembering her kindness, her laughter, and the way she had touched lives even in her short time. The billionaire shared a story about how she had comforted a frightened neighbor. The janitor shared how she had inspired trust in the child, and together, they realized that her memory was alive in the actions and hearts of those around her. The child listened, absorbing the warmth and love in the stories, feeling a connection to someone they had never met, but whose spirit had guided and inspired them. The day grew warmer, the sun shining softly through the leaves, illuminating the tomb and the small circle of people around it. The billionaire felt a sense of peace, a moment of clarity. He understood that grief and healing could coexist, that sorrow could bring people together, and that even in loss, there could be opportunity for love and care. The janitor and the child were no longer strangers. They were connected to him through shared experience, empathy, and the enduring presence of his daughter's memory. As they prepared to leave the cemetery, the billionaire felt a quiet determination. He would not walk away from this connection. He would offer support, guidance, and care, and he would do so with humility and understanding. The janitor and the child had given him a gift, an opportunity to extend love beyond his own grief, to create a bond that would honor his daughter's memory in meaningful ways. He felt gratitude, hope, and a sense of responsibility, all intertwined in the quiet strength of human connection. Walking out together, the billionaire felt lighter, not free from sorrow, but carrying it differently, with a sense of purpose and compassion. The child held his hand, small but firm, trusting him, and the janitor walked beside them, a quiet strength in his presence. The cemetery faded behind them, but the memories, connections, and newfound bonds remained, guiding the billionaire toward healing, understanding, and the profound realization that even in the darkest moments, humanity could shine through in acts of kindness, love, and shared sorrow. The days after the cemetery visit were different for the billionaire. Each morning, he woke with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in a long time. The memory of the janitor and the child stayed with him, and he found himself thinking not only of his own grief but of the connection he now shared with them. He began making plans to ensure the child had stability, love, and support, something he realized money alone could not provide without the presence of care and attention. He invited the janitor to meet him at his home, a quiet gesture of trust and an offer of partnership. The janitor was hesitant at first, aware of the vast difference in their worlds, but he agreed, sensing the sincerity and warmth in the billionaire's intention. The child clung to the janitor's hand, shy but curious, feeling the change in atmosphere, a sense of possibility and safety they had rarely experienced before. The billionaire's home, usually quiet and cold with its vast spaces, suddenly felt more alive. The child's laughter echoed in the hallways, tentative at first and then freer with each passing day. The janitor moved comfortably, his presence grounding the household in a way the billionaire had not realized it needed. It was a small family forming, built not by circumstance but by choice, compassion, and the human need for connection. Meals were shared together, simple at first, with the billionaire learning to adjust to a different rhythm, one dictated not by business schedules but by the needs of the child and the janitor. They talked, laughed, and sometimes cried, each moment a step toward healing and trust. The billionaire discovered that true wealth was not measured in money or possessions, but in the bonds of love and care that could grow even from sorrow. They began creating routines, small rituals that helped anchor the child. Bedtime stories, walks in nearby parks, and quiet moments of reflection by the window became daily occurrences. The billionaire read aloud, sometimes faltering, sometimes smiling, learning to speak to a child he had never known but already cared for deeply. The janitor helped with guidance, discipline, and the subtle wisdom that comes from experience, balancing the billionaire's desire to provide with the child's need for understanding and patience. The billionaire also began speaking to the child about his daughter, not as someone lost forever, but as someone whose spirit lived on through acts of kindness, care, and courage. They shared stories, photos, and memories, painting a picture of a young girl who had changed lives in small but meaningful ways. The child listened, wide-eyed, feeling connected to someone they had never met, but whose presence seemed to guide them and inspire trust and hope. Over time, the child grew more confident, more secure, and more willing to express emotions freely. The billionaire learned to be patient, to listen, and to respond with empathy. The janitor remained a steady guide, offering wisdom, protection, and a constant reminder of the resilience that had brought them to this point. Together, they formed a balance of love, care, and guidance, a trio bound by shared sorrow, empathy, and hope for the future. There were challenges, of course. The child sometimes struggled with feelings of loss, anger, or fear. The billionaire had moments of doubt, questioning whether he could meet the emotional needs that money alone could never fill. The janitor offered support and perspective, reminding him that presence, patience, and consistency mattered more than perfection. Each challenge became an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to strengthen the bond that had begun at the cemetery. The billionaire also found himself reflecting on his own grief in new ways. By helping the child, by connecting with the janitor, he realized that his daughter's memory could be honored not only through remembrance but through action. The acts of love, care, and guidance he offered became a living tribute, a way to extend the light his daughter had brought into the world. It was a healing process, slow and steady, but profoundly meaningful. They visited the cemetery together on quiet weekends, bringing flowers, sharing stories, and reflecting on the past. The child learned to understand grief as part of life, but not the entirety of it. They learned that sadness could coexist with joy, that memory could inspire action, and that love could be both enduring and evolving. The billionaire watched as the child placed flowers on the tomb, their small hands arranging them carefully, and he felt a sense of continuity, hope, and pride. The janitor watched them both, quietly proud of the progress and connection forming. He saw the billionaire grow into a compassionate caregiver, someone who had experienced loss yet found the strength to offer love and stability to another. He saw the child bloom, gaining confidence, laughter, and trust, nourished by the attention, care, and presence of both men. It was a transformation born not of wealth, but of humanity, empathy, and the power of shared grief to forge bonds. The billionaire also began to engage with others in ways he hadn't before, recognizing the importance of community and support. He involved himself in local initiatives for children and families, inspired by the child's resilience and the janitor's dedication. His perspective on life shifted, understanding that influence and care mattered more than titles or riches. He began to see life not as a series of transactions but as an opportunity to impact others positively, to honor memory through action. As the days turned into weeks, the bond among the three deepened. They shared meals, stories, and quiet moments, creating a sense of family that was organic, genuine, and deeply meaningful. The child thrived, the janitor felt relief and pride, and the billionaire found healing, purpose, and a new understanding of love. The home, once filled with silence and sorrow, was alive with laughter, care, and hope. The child began to ask questions about the world, about life, and about the daughter they had never met. The billionaire answered patiently, sharing lessons, values, and memories. He taught them about kindness, empathy, and the importance of understanding others. The janitor reinforced these lessons, modeling patience, resilience, and quiet strength. Together, they formed a family not defined by blood but by care, shared experience, and commitment. Seasons changed, and with them, the child grew, more confident, joyful, and secure. They learned to express emotions freely, to trust others, and to understand that grief was not something to fear but something that could teach empathy and connection. The billionaire learned alongside them, understanding that healing was a journey, not a destination, and that love could be both a gift and a responsibility. One afternoon, as they sat together near the window, watching sunlight dance on the floor, the child spoke softly about the daughter. They asked questions, shared feelings, and expressed curiosity about the girl whose memory had brought them together. The billionaire smiled, feeling a mix of sorrow and joy, understanding that memory could inspire connection and growth. The janitor nodded, proud of the child's courage and openness. Together, they honored the daughter's legacy not only in remembrance but in action, care, and shared love. Over time, the bond between them became unbreakable. The billionaire, the janitor, and the child navigated challenges, celebrated small victories, and faced life's uncertainties together. They created traditions, shared experiences, and learned from each other. Each moment reinforced the power of human connection, the importance of empathy, and the enduring influence of love even after loss. They were a family, not because of circumstance, but because of choice, care, and shared experience. The child thrived in this environment, growing into a confident, compassionate, and resilient individual. The janitor continued to provide guidance, protection, and wisdom, while the billionaire offered love, stability, and presence. Together, they created a life filled with meaning, hope, and healing. Each day was a testament to the power of human connection, to the importance of presence, and to the ways in which grief could transform into love, care, and family. Years later, the billionaire would reflect on that first day at the tomb, the moment when he saw the janitor and child crying together. He would remember the shock, the curiosity, and the growing understanding that had led him to a new kind of family. He would realize that the encounter had changed him profoundly, teaching him that love and care could extend beyond personal loss, that grief could create connection, and that human relationships were the most valuable treasure of all. The child, now grown, would carry the lessons, love, and memories forward, inspired by the daughter's kindness, the janitor's guidance, and the billionaire's presence. The bond they formed would remain strong, a living tribute to the power of empathy, resilience, and shared humanity. The billionaire, once consumed by grief and loss, found healing and purpose, understanding that love could transform sorrow into hope, memory into action, and loss into connection. Together, they had created a family that thrived, healed, and honored the past while embracing the future.